Welcome, 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 everybody. I am joined by Ketura, who is the organizer for the Players Council. I got that right, not Players Committee, the Players Council for the Lord of the Rings TCG. And we're here today to talk about what the PC is doing with Lord of the Rings, the new sets they're trying to release, and sort of how they got organized. But let's start off with a little introduction. So, Ketura, how did you get into the hobby? And just kind of tell me about yourself.
Well, so I got into the hobby way back when it first came out. The very first set that I ever bought was from Fellowship of the Ring. I missed the actual release itself, but me and my brother bought the last two starters for Fellowship of the Ring that were on the shelf, and then thereafter, the only thing we had access to was Mines of Moria, and so that was how we started, was just playing that. And I've always been a huge Tolkien fan. So I was really into the movies when they came out, and got into the card game, and ended up kind of drifting off sometime around the Two Towers when the Two Towers release came out. But then over the years, I kept coming back to work on things like the wiki, and I kept in touch with a lot of people on the Last Homely House, which was a very aptly named forum that has survived for more than a decade now at this point, that was dedicated to the game. And so it was one of those things that kept drawing me back in, right? It was a cycle that I noticed, actually, not only within myself but in other people, where you'd leave for a year or two, and then you'd think, man, why don't I play this game more often? Like, it's such a good game, so many good mechanics, and such a good design, and so you end up going back in and playing online or pulling out your old cards or whatever, and then just eventually kind of drifting away again. And it was just a cycle that kept happening over and over. It always pulls you back in.
So what's the latest thing that pulled you back in? So for me, I've told folks I got back into stuff during COVID. I'm a COVID collector, COVID gamer. I know that there's a whole bunch of us floating around, but was COVID something that kind of brought you back around to this? Or
Oh, sure. Like, I had actually gotten into it a little bit before COVID. I had just because of the timing of the cycle, I was back into it a little bit. But right around the time that lockdown started happening in the US, I was finally linked to a very active Facebook group, which I hadn't been aware of up until that point. And it was amazing to see activity again, because the Last Homely House had been dead for years and years, just a post here and there. While the game platform Gemp had been more or less active, it was less of a community and more just, the place you go when you want to play. But so to see people coming in and all kind of going through the same process of, man, I'm stuck at home all day long, and looking in their closet and saying, hey, there's this game, maybe I'll find someone on Facebook or something to talk with. And it just kind of kept ballooning and ballooning, and the whole size of the community kept increasing. And so at that point, this may sound a little bit backwards, but I lost my job for about 3 months in the middle of the pandemic, in about June of 2020. And I had nothing else to do, so this is what I worked on. And those 3 months were a time period where I got together with a couple of other people and helped organize the PC and get it out there. It's something that people have been talking about for years and years and years, literally since Decipher was still in business. Finally decided that this is the opportunity. With looking at the numbers on Gemp, they were going up, skyrocketing with how many games people were playing. So it just seemed like the time was ripe to finally getting around to do it. It was during that same period of time that I put together the card generator that we now use for creating the images, both for PC purposes and that the community uses to put out a lot of those nifty looking card images, dream cards that you'll see up on Facebook. So I mean, like, a lot of things happened during those 3 months, but the organizing of the PC was the big one that I wanted to get together and start pushing on. From there, to try and build it up into an organization that could hopefully at least look like the one that Star Wars has, to try and keep the longevity of the game going.
And frankly, I applaud the work you guys are doing. I think it is great, and I remind everybody it's also unpaid work.
Yeah.
And can be a lot of hours. And so I think it's great that you guys are doing this, because it injects new ideas and gives new platforms to the game. And so I think actually we have on the other screen. I think you guys just redid the wiki, right? Do you want to show off your new wiki, if that's
sure? Yes.
Yeah. Let me pull this over. So my understanding is you guys just redid the entire wiki. So easier to find cards? I mean, you want to kind of walk us through what you got here?
Sure. So this had actually been kind of in the works for even a few years back when the last Homely House was still ran by its original owner, Kralik. I'd kind of been going back and forth with him on redoing the wiki. And then eventually he handed the last Homely House over to the Players Council to run. And so it was like, okay, well, now it's just the time to finally give this whole thing a revamp, because the old one had a lot of very fiddly bits about it.
So could I just jump in and say that I see on this 35,000 pages and counting at the top
Yep.
there. So just to really put an exclamation mark on the amount of work that's gone into this.
So it is a tiny bit misleading, only because, like, for instance, if I come over here and just jump over to one of the cards real quick. So let's just go to Beneath the Mountains here. So this is going to have actually 4 different pages just by default of existing. So we've got the page itself discussing the card and how to use it and whatnot. And then we have a collection tab that is supposed to give all the different versions of the card that exists. So here you can see there's a few different languages for all the different languages was printed in. We have foil images where possible. And then we also have a history tab, which for the vast majority of cards actually isn't used very much. But in cases where there's errata or things like that, that's where we want this to go, so you can see the version history. And then there's this is just kind of an internal data tab that is used to organize all the stuff, because all these cards are basically stored in a database. And so this is information that we can come in and we can edit. And so if there's a typo or something in the card text, this is where we can come in to change it. And so when you take into account the fact that there are 3,500 cards, each of which has 4 pages dedicated to it. And then the same is true for some of the sets and things like that. So that 35,000 number is a little bit inflated because some of it is, these workhorse pages that are there to automate some of the work for us. But there still are quite a few actual pages. Besides each card having its own page, we've got a lot of pages here for talking about different concepts within the game, different rules, different
And I think that's
terms.
really helpful for new folks that are coming back that maybe played this game. Like for me, like I bought 2 booster boxes back in the day and played a couple local tournaments, and then there's lots of new ideas, and it turns out I wasn't very good at this game either, right? So it turns out that the strategies I was employing were not good strategies. So I think it's really good to have that deck building and strategy portion. And so I think that kind of brings us to, if you're a normal person, how can you pick this game up and play it? And you can go to Gemp. And just to get a clarification, the correct pronunciation of Gemp is what?
Is Gemp. So I heard on one of the other videos that you were having that people were pronouncing it Gemp. And I just wanted to dive in real quick and just give like a 30-second history lesson here. So Marcin S., the guy that put this platform together, it did originate with Lord of the Rings, not with Star Wars. He was actually originally trying to build it for Legend of the Five Rings. And at the time, there still is, I think it still exists, there was a Magic the Gathering program called Apprentice, which was used to play the game online. And so to riff off of that, he called his Legend of the Five Rings platform Genpuku, which is a Japanese term referring to like an apprenticeship, basically, or kind of a coming of age ceremony, actually. So something related to apprentice. So that was kind of his riff on the whole thing. And it just got shortened to Gemp because nobody wants to call it Genpuku. Well, the Legend of the Five Rings thing didn't work, and so he ended up adopting Lord of the Rings and hosting the platform there instead, or hosting that game there instead on that platform. So I'm pretty sure the Japanese doesn't have a hard or a soft G, so it's definitely Gemp.
No, that's helpful. So while we're on Gemp, and it's great to hear these stories as well, like the correct pronunciation of Gemp. I'm a new player. I want to get back into it. So Gemp is a 100% free way to play the game, and you can build decks there. Do you have like the starter decks preloaded in? For example, Fellowship or Minds of Moria starter decks like preloaded in?
So we don't. That is one of the features we want to get, but that is actually something that you can find on the wiki. So if we come over here to starter deck, there's going to be a page with all of the deck lists. So if I come in here and I decide I want to try the Fellowship of the Ring Aragorn starter deck, if I click on this, then this is actually going to bring me over to a page that has just a list of everything that needs to be included. Now, normally, when you take a look at these, the starter decks are not actually tournament legal. You'll see that there's 24 cards per side, 25 cards per side on this, instead of the 30 that you need minimum. And so it actually turns out that on the old official platform, Lord of the Rings Online TCG, they had made modifications to those decks. So we have made sure that those additions are also in here. So I can just take this whole thing and I can copy it. And then in Gemp, if I hop over here to the deck builder, I can come up here and I can click on this import deck button and give it a paste and hit import, and it'll take care of all of that for me.
Wow.
So while they're not built in, it is 30 seconds to actually bring one in.
I'm learning something new here, so I didn't realize it was that easy. I was actually going back and alt like tab to move back and forth. So it's nice just to copy and paste and then save it at the top left, which it took me a long time to find the save button on Gemp. So it's like
save right up here. So it's there's definitely a lot of really rough patches in this program. There's a lot of things about the interface that just drive me up the wall personally.
Yeah, which is the lack of a back button, right? So to leave that screen, you have to close it essentially, right?
Well, no, you can't hit back. If you hit back here, it goes right back to the main page.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now, normally because of that, people know to open like the deck builder and such in a new tab or use the middle mouse button. But there's definitely a lot of just small things. We have a Trello board that is just full of all the things that we want to change about Gemp. Like so many things that are wrong with what needs to happen. It really just comes down to, we need more time and more manpower to change some of these things.
So I think this is actually a great segue into what is the PC up to right now? What are sort of the priorities? I understand there's a virtual set 1 that just came out or is coming out, or, I'm behind on this stuff. So maybe you can kind of tell me about, the new stuff that's cooking and the new virtual cards and sort of the process that goes into that.
Sure. So there are 2 major things with the digital game that we want to be tackling. One is the game balance, issuing errata and things like that for old existing Decipher cards, and of course pushing the boundaries forward with new virtual cards. Before the PC, for the most part, people had been using the exact same cards that had always existed, for 10 or 15 years. And usually people would sort of just kind of groan and deal with the fact that there were some overpowered cards that were released, especially the longer that the game's run went on. Sometimes people would try to put together customized formats that would have custom X lists to ban cards that were particularly overpowered. But almost inevitably, those sorts of things would either just be limited to someone's individual, kitchen table, or they would get talked about on the forums and then they would just kind of fizzle out. Because when you don't have the same tools that Gemp allows, like where Gemp will actually enforce this and say, okay, this is what you have to do. There's no more, I didn't realize that kind of thing of just following the gentleman agreements. Then it becomes too difficult, I think, for a lot of people to buy in. But so with Gemp being the platform that it is, that you can actually enforce the rules and such, that was one of the things we wanted to go in and do, was to start issuing errata. And so we did it very, very slowly at first, very timidly, trying only to touch the cards that were known to be bad. We started actually with Decipher's own ban list. We figured that's got to be as good a place to start as any cards. Exactly. Decipher agreed that these were busted cards, so let's go in and unbust them. And so we started with that. We issued an errata for every single card that had ever been X listed or R listed. It kind of got us back to square one. I've always kind of felt that with a digital platform, there's no excuses for us to have like ban lists. For individual formats, it might make sense, but if there's a card that's banned, it may as well not exist. So what exactly is the point? I'll just go in and I'll make a new version of that card so that it doesn't have that problem. And we have also been discussing and playtesting additional changes. One of the things that we're also wanting to do is issue buffs, not just nerfs. So we want to take some of those cards that have always been overlooked, that have always been kind of left behind the wayside. So if I come in and take a look at some of these cards, let me see if I can find.
Yeah, and while you look, I'm just going to say, I think one of the things about this game in particular, it feels like it without a new meta or errata, it was kind of like a solved game, right?
Mm-hmm.
more so than Star Wars CCG, where you had kind of like different platforms and places to play and be. This is a pretty linear experience. You're going from site 1 to site 9, and how you do that, you can quickly kind of figure out the most optimal path without new cards or errata or tweaks. So
exactly, and I think that was actually one of the things contributing. Like I mentioned, that multi-year cycle of people fading in and fading out. I think part of it was because they would come in, they would get really excited again, they would make a bunch of new decks, and then they would start to play, and they'd realize, oh yeah, all you got to do is play that deck and you win, kind of thing.
yeah.
And that's why I haven't been playing this, for the last year and a half. And so we really want to try and get in and make that sort of thing a problem of the past. I've always thought, just from a game design standpoint, that one of the things that people really like about these sorts of games is figuring stuff out. And if you have a meta that is solidified and fossilized, there's nothing else to figure out. You can maybe do a few little tweaks to your deck to try and beat some of the meta stuff, but by and large, you're not gonna make big, huge shifts. And so, even if there were no problematic cards anymore, my philosophy would be, let's go in and let's shake things up. Let's go buff some of these cards that never see play. Let's throw in some new cards. Let's do something to now make it so that you now no longer know what the most meta or what the best solution to this game is anymore.
No, I think that's absolutely, you have to be doing that. It's hard to say, like, there's already a dead game, right? It's dead CCG, but to keep the people interested in this dead CCG, you have to be putting new things in to sort of change the optimal decks and the strategies. And I played 2 games on Gemp last night, and I was reminded of how linear the experience kind of is. Traversing these sites, and do you do two moves or 1 move? And so I think that the new cards and game strategies is really important for this.
For sure.
So kind of moving along, I got a couple other questions for you. Recommendations for new players coming into the hobby. Maybe you can kind of take us to the PC website. I think you guys have a lot of resources right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm a new player. I just watched the new Amazon show, and I Googled this. I'm like, oh, I wanted a click hole, and I found this website. Because this is going to happen, right? This is going to happen in 6 months. People are going to Google things, and this is going to come up in some search engine. So what do you say to new players that want to start in this? Like, what's the best place to start? Oh, right. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, we've got that exact question. Like, we have a series of facts that are over here, a series of frequently asked questions, and how do I get started playing is one of the top questions. Obviously, there's different routes that you can take. You could actually go with the physical game of having the cardboard in your hands, or you can go and play online. My philosophy is that online is the way to go. There's just a little bit fewer than 10,000 games per month that are played on Gemp, which is about 500 per day, if I remember correctly. So you're never going to have an easier time finding games than doing it on the digital space. However, it is still possible to find various communities. We have up here, we have a community sort of atlas of people that have signed up to be alerted when there's somebody in a particular area that wants to join their particular group and start playing. So that is definitely an avenue that you can take. Although as time has gone on, it has gotten more and more expensive to buy into this hobby. So that may not be accessible to everybody. But either way, if you're just trying to learn the game, then this how do I get started playing, will give you the lowdown of some of the brief history of the game itself, and that'll give you links to the rule books that you can go download from the wiki. It'll link to the wiki itself. There are a whole bunch of tutorial videos. There's one that we've done with the Players Council, and then also a bunch of other videos down here that have been linked. There's lots and lots of material to watch if that's the best way for you to learn. But honestly, one of the things you can also do is just hop on the PC Discord and ask somebody for a game, or hop right into Gemp and ask if somebody's willing to give you your first game, and have somebody walk you through. Once you've gotten familiar with the interface, most people are very amenable to that and willing to walk you through and explain things and help out. It's definitely a very friendly community in that way.
So that's one thing I guess important to note. So the platforms where you can find a community, Discord and Facebook, those are the 2 big vehicles. Is that sort of the best place to start looking?
If you're looking for community interaction, then yes. The archive of history is still on the last Homely House. That hasn't gone anywhere. And so that's definitely still a place where you can browse to find old deck ideas and things of that nature. But as far as where the community is, Facebook is number one, and then the PC Discord is number two, I think, as far as just sheer interaction and how many people are still talking and communicating.
So one thing I think you kind of mentioned the increase in price. I think that I came into this maybe midstream of the spike in prices. I came in about a year and a half ago, and I was like, oh, this is cheaper than Star Wars was my big thought. And I think that things have sort of ticked up as more folks have come back, and there's been a real spike in collectors. And I just want to maybe get your thoughts on this. What does the increase in pricing of the game mean for the accessibility of it? Like, are folks just going to get priced out, or are there plenty of formats that are, still cheap? I mean, I'll be honest, I bought a pack of Fellowship of the Ring for $3, which I think is under retail, right? Like, there's still a lot of stuff that was cheaper than, retail price, out there on eBay, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. It's, there are formats that can definitely be played, and especially when people are in kitchen table situations where they're not going to be trying to completely optimize their friends out, and trying to play the absolute best of everything. It can still be very accessible. Team Covenant recently had a stream where they have been just ripping open packs from a booster box and drafting against each other.
I think it's been great. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and I think that folks are, there's a pretty big captive audience there as well. A couple thousand people are tuning in to watch it. So,
yeah. So I mean, like it's still possible to do. It's not yet at a point where it's kind of like I understand that the Middle Earth CCG from back in the day, the Dice or the Ice CCG. I don't think they've gotten to the point almost where it's pretty much impossible to buy sealed product anymore. And so the only thing that you can do is to hopefully buy lots from people dumping their stock on the market. We're not yet to that point. But we have gotten to a point where the price of sealed has started to go up. It was before the pandemic, before everybody got trapped in their houses and started looking around for things to do again. I'm pretty sure that things were at least in some cases 5 to 10 times cheaper than they are now. There was an enormous spike as people went out and bought what was on the websites, what was on eBay, and started opening, ripping open packs again, and it just kind of started this mass, demand. And some sets have started to hit that point where, you just don't see them anymore, especially the rarer ones like the later, set 17 and 18.
And maybe you can just quickly comment on that. So this follows the same pattern as other Decipher games, where the later sets are the ones where the license is running out, and they're trying to print it until like midnight of the night. Is that the same pattern we see?
And it may even be a little bit more prominent in Lord of the Rings. I don't quite remember the timeline, but I think Lord of the Rings may have been the last property, essentially the last property that Decipher had access to. And so, they were printing the set 19, the Age's End, literally right up until the day that the license ran out. They handed out what packs they could, shipped them off, and as far as I know, the company started shambling at that point. Like same sort of stories other places. Like the later sets had very limited print runs. They went out a year and a half after they were scheduled to go, and so a lot of people had already canceled their pre-orders or didn't realize that they were that it was released when it came out, and so it was just kind of released to a whimper instead of a bang, and it was just kind of a sad ending. There's not really any other way to put it. And so those later sets became extremely difficult to find because people who were on top of things did snap them up, and that's essentially been the only source ever since is people reselling what they had bought at the time. And over time, it has gotten to the point where if you're trying to collect some of those sealed products for set 17 and 18, good luck. When they do show up, they're 4 digits easy. And it would not surprise me if it got even higher.
And it's genuinely because the print run of this was a couple thousand, and a lot of it just didn't really materialize, right? I think it didn't even make it to local game stores. They didn't place the orders. And so, I think there's a genuine scarcity of this product. As someone who's kind of eyed buying different things, like I just have never seen it for sale, right? I've seen one Treachery and Deceit box, which is the last set, or second to last set technically. So do you think that the price increase, is it bringing in more collectors who are kind of, or where do you kind of see things going from here?
I mean, it might. I don't really consider myself a collector much, and so I sort of keep things at arm's length there, so I kind of see what a little bit of what's happening as people jump in and jump out. But I'm not sure if the appeal of the rarity has attracted a whole lot of collectors. I mean, maybe that is what makes some people tick. I feel like most of the time people remember what a good game this was that did have a collecting element to it, especially with the parallel foil sets that the first half of the game had and things of that nature. So it wouldn't surprise me if people kind of convert to collecting after they've played for a little bit. But I guess I don't understand the inner workings of a collector's mind enough to be able to tell if that is necessarily one of the things that's attracting them to it. But it definitely could be.
Yeah, you can for me, you can swap out like collector with hoarder, right? It's like so just need like a dragon's hoard, like Smaug over here. But no, I think this game has a lot of very, like, all the Decipher products. They made very pretty cards, right? Like I've been around a lot of CCGs, and Decipher products just stick out. They're just really nice looking. And I also know that folks in the CCG world kind of like poo-poo like movie like card games based
movie
on
stills,
movie stills. But like I think that Decipher just did it so like beautifully, and like the flavor text and like the sort of Easter eggs hidden in there. So I that's why I enjoy collecting it, and I'm getting back into playing. It's just a really beautiful game to play. Anyways, I will get off my high horse there.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. Like having actually been on the side of designing cards now, because I've done the majority of the images for the PC virtual sets. It's a lot harder than it seems at first to just grabbing an image and slapping it on there. Like there's composition you have to think about. There's a lot of editing actually that goes into some of these cards. We have a document somewhere of examples of Decipher going in and just like almost piecing together a brand new image, from what was on the screen. It's not just a matter of, throwing it, slapping whatever image you find on there. There's a lot of artistry that goes into it. And kind of like what I have up there on screen, like just the detail that went into picking what parts of the cards get foiled or not is something that keeps surprising me as we went through this project of getting all the foil images up here. Like they put a lot of work into this, and they were good at what they did. It's no joke, to be honest.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody about how 2001 was the highest of the high for Decipher, the lowest of the lows, because simultaneously you had this infrastructure in place where you just got this huge contract with Lord of the Rings, right? Like the movie of 2001, but you're simultaneously also losing the Star Wars property, right? And so you still had this like crack team, and they still make the art of great games. Like I will always going to be a Decipher fanboy a little bit. And you see the remnants around here. I'm in the DC metro area, and you see remnants of Decipher because they're based an hour south. So there's a lot of like relics of Decipher just around this area that I sometimes see. And
that was one of the things that I've put a lot of effort into is working on archival work, trying to farm out stuff from the Wayback Machine, from Decipher's old website and such. And one of the things that I have been trying to put some effort into preserving is the old Radio Free Decipher podcast that they had. And so as part of the process, I had to listen to each episode. I've only got about halfway through it at this point. But during 2001, it was such whiplash to listen to them talk about all the things that were upcoming for their plans for Star Wars and their plans for Lord of the Rings. It was just coming out. And then you have the sudden gut punch of Warren Holland needing to come on and say, all right, well, unfortunately, Star Wars has been yanked out from underneath us. And it was, I can't even imagine what that would have been like to actually have needed to deal with that. And reading into it, it just seems like an awful situation all around. But yeah, I definitely agree with you.
So let's look to the future a little bit. So Virtual Set 1 just came out, correct? For Lord of the Rings.
So we first released a beta as kind of a Christmas present in December. So it is currently in the playtest formats in Gemp that is available to anybody. If they come over here to that playtesting tab that's highlighted in red, you can come up here and you can sign up for playtesting, and that will enable special playtesting formats that you can utilize. And yeah, so all the cards that we have designed over the last year, actually, all the way up to January of last year, were digitized. We got them coded in, and they're all here to use. All of these are brand new.
So it's a fairly small set. I'm looking like 25 cards. Is that it, or 20?
It's about, if I remember correctly, let me see if I can. I think it's about 50.
Okay.
It's embarrassing that I can't remember it off the top of my head, but
No, it's.
yeah,
I was just curious. I was just playing the new Magic expansion. It's like 280 cards. I'm like, this is so many, like so many new things.
And honestly, actually, that was so. One of the things that I've tried to do with the PC is I've tried very hard to not make the same mistakes that other people have made, because this is not the first PC attempt for this game, and this is obviously not the first fan set that people have attempted to make. And one of the major problems that I see repeatedly is that people come in and they try to make their own brand new block. They decide, well, okay, this is the way Decipher did it, is that they would come out with a new block that had a 365 base set and then a 121 expansion and a 121 expansion. And I'm like, yeah, guys, you have to realize that they had a team of people, several teams of people, that are working full time at this, that have had, years and years of experience, cranking these sorts of things out. You cannot, that is too ambitious. You can't actually do that. And so one of the things that we were trying to make sure of that we did differently here was to intentionally reduce our scope to a point that was something that was actually attainable for a small team of individuals, a small team of volunteers at that. So, for instance, all of these cards are intended to be essentially a mini expansion to the Fellowship of the Ring block. So rather than making a brand new block, a brand new format, brand new everything, we're saying, okay, we're going to be a parasite on the tail of this existing format, and we're going to introduce things that will expand ideas that were within those sets that are compatible thematically, but that don't try to really go all out and invent a brand new game, which is essentially what you have to do every time that you make a brand new block and a brand new expansion.
It seems like the format within Lord of the Rings makes it more challenging due to like the play being contained mostly within blocks, right? And I'm just thinking about other games where like, you got the whole collection there, and you can just kind of like a different design mind, when you go into this process. But
oh yeah, and that's another thing too, is so while there are formats that allow you to play with every card, expanded is the least popular of the popular formats that are out there, which is that's the all encompassing format that allows you to play just about anything. It's about 15% of games that are played per month. And in contrast, Fellowship of the Ring represents about 50% of all games, and Movie Block, the first 10 sets, represents about 25% of all games played. So expanded, because it's so bonkers, because it's so broken, because there's, the last 3 sets had very little QA that went into them, very, very little playtesting. It was make them, design them up, draw them up, and get them printed. There just wasn't any time, wasn't any manpower left at that point to playtest anything. And so there's a lot of busted stuff, and that's one of the things that we want to try and grab by the tail and get fixed at some point. And eventually, I do want to get to the point where expanded is the de facto format, just like it is in Star Wars. They don't call it expanded, but it's essentially the same sort of thing. Where it's just like, yeah, that's one of the more popular ones. Is just play with everything. We've got a lot of work to get to that point, but we can't start by tackling that either. We can't start when things are too big. You got to take something that is bite-sized, something that is attainable by 5 people.
I think it's the amount of work you guys have already put in is just tremendous. And once again, thank you for kind of helping keep this game going and keeping the torch moving. And so just have a couple more questions for you. What do you think this might, I don't think this is a controversial question, but what is your opinion on the new Amazon show? Does it do it for you as a longtime Lord of the Rings fan, or not really?
So my thing that I always rant about whenever this subject comes up, because there's a lot of people that are being stupid about this, I think, is True. That when Tolkien first put together his Legendarium, the whole point was that he wanted to make a mythology for England. because he looked around at like the Norse mythology and the Greek mythology and these other places that had not just stories that were associated with a particular area, but it was like a series, right? An ongoing series where there are different versions of different myths, and there's this world and this pantheon and everything that is all connected. And Tolkien wanted to make that for England, so he was going to build Middle Earth, and it was going to be the foundation for other people to come in and start filling it in. It's why you don't have plots filled out in every single area of that he wrote. I mean, obviously he fleshed out Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit the most, but even within the Silmarillion, there are areas where he goes into a whole lot of detail where there were clear plots that were in his mind, and in other areas he lists off a bunch of kings and leaves 2,000 years worth of history practically unsaid, because the intention, the whole point, was that other people were going to come in with their ideas and they were going to try and fill it in. That. So for people to get really, really mad about the fact that Amazon is now coming in and filling it in, I feel like they're missing the point a little bit. That is what Tolkien wanted. So I am perfectly okay with someone coming in and trying to fill it in. But I've also for a very long time been a very big proponent of fan fiction and fan works and other things that take the ideas that the author had and ran with them. Now, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? I have no idea. I mean, it looks, thematically appropriate, at least with the Peter Jackson films. They hired out Weta and they bought out everything that was in their warehouses to fit everybody in, and they've got a look that looks extremely similar to the Peter Jackson films. So I think it's, I feel like they have at least as good a chance as you might hope for them to actually come up with something that is at least as good as the Jackson films. So we'll see. I'm not going to decide right now based on a 1-minute trailer that it is absolutely trash and it's going to be terrible. We'll see.
and I guess down the road, I hope to see some cards perhaps from the show, if that doesn't cause too much
come to mind. Yes, that is definitely one of the things that's like, hey, even if it's not good, I will be happy to have more pictures of swords and bows and things that are difficult to grab from from the movies. So
yeah, I completely agree. Last question: what is your favorite race to play in the game?
Oh, I don't know if I really have a favorite race. I do have a favorite method of playing. If you were to go by the Magic the Gathering terminology, I'm definitely a Johnny. I like my big combos, and even if I have to play 10 games before I pull it off once, I still count it good. So my favorite, for instance, is which I've repeated this over and over ever since we ran a live stream several months ago, and somebody pulled this combo off, and I've stopped at nothing until I've been able to pull it off myself. And it's the Final Cry deck, which is putting in the Balrog and 4 copies of his whip and 4 copies of Final Cry. And the idea being that when you play Final Cry, you play it as a response to when the Balrog's skirmish is about to end, and then you inflict multiple wounds on whoever he was fighting. So a lot of people like to dodge the Balrog. They like to use Hobbit stealth, or they like to cancel it somehow. And this has been, it's always wonderful when they send Aragorn or Gandalf or something against the Balrog, and they think, oh, I'll just tank him. And just a couple of Final Cries completely ruins their day. And, it almost never works. But that mentality of, having a wonderful combo that can completely win me the game, if I pull it off, is it's addictive. I can't avoid that.
I understand. It's also like something that's kind of like elegant when it works. It's like so.
Oh, yeah. It looks like you were the mastermind the whole time, and it's like, oh no, bro, I drew the cards and played them. But
well, thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with me, and I'm really happy to hear that you guys have so much interesting and fun stuff in the works, and I will include in the video description all the possible resources to Gemp and to the PC, and so hopefully we can get some more folks on Gemp and keep this game going.
For sure. And just as a last little plea, if this is something that interests you, if this is something that you would like to donate your time and whatever talents you may have, like we have a lot of infrastructure being set up, but what we lack are people to take charge of some of these projects. For instance, we would love to have a tournament circuit. We would love to have a regionals and a world championship again, but we don't have anybody to run it. and my time is tapped out on running the servers and working on improvements to Gemp and such. So really, what we need is people that are willing to head up some of these projects. So if there's something like that, like video production or taking charge of the wiki, or if there's something like that you feel like you would like to make your hobby, like, we would please ask you to join us and give us help us out, because we're looking to try and make this game last as long as it can. It's incredible that it's lasted 20 years, but I'm pretty sure that we could push it out 20 more, if we actually built up the organization for it to keep going. So
absolutely, I will include an email address where if you're interested in getting involved, please shoot them a note, because I think that's a great opportunity. Well, once again, thank you for taking some time and chatting. And if folks listening enjoyed the content, just appreciate a like or a subscribe. It helps grow the game by showing the game to more folks on YouTube, and it helps me out as well. So
mash that bell icon.
Yeah, I got to get like a little icon, everyone does it like a little graphic. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see everybody later.
Thank you.